Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bharat Reddy, Product Manager at TechGeek.com. Welcome to TechGeek.com, the most passionate technology community helping tech professionals and professional growth. One such initiative is TechGeek Webinars, the first of its kind from any technology community site in India. The topic for today is Web 3.0, the possibilities for developers. The presentation will continue for the next 45 minutes, and in the end we'll take 10 to 15 minutes for questions. In case we could not answer all the questions during the session, we'll post the questions on techgeek.com. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions while the presentation is going on, you can post it in the chat available here. Without taking much time of yours, I would like to introduce Girish, the Director of Kela Global. Girish has 12 years of experience in technology, building mission-critical, highly scalable backend systems. He co-founded companies like WebGeor and Instacall, and he was the head of technology at the TO Times of India Group. Welcome, Girish. It's all yours.
Thank you, Bharat. Hi guys. I hope your reception is good. I'm going to get straight into the presentation. I'm going to be starting with the evolution of the web as we know it. Quickly take you through a couple of stages that we witnessed already before introducing to Web 3.0 and get into the actual applications of it as developers and how we can kind of leverage what is happening and is going to happen. Right. So Web 1.0 quickly was a collection of interlinked documents. That's how it was started. It was mostly written in HTML, delivered via HTTP. We've invented a browser to just render that HTML. Basic need of having the Web 1.0, the first version of the web was conceived by the Defense Ministry in the US, as we all know. And it was basically to communicate static content and documents across the web. There was more read than write because whatever the webmasters and the website owners chose to put out there is what we as audience got to see. So it was not very interactive, and slowly the web moved into the next wave of development. One of the initial advancements was felt in the need for AJAX. And AJAX came into the browsers, the biggies, Internet Explorer and Netscape and Firefox started introducing AJAX, and after that everything changed. Now even though AJAX is not Web 2.0, it was one of the reason why Web 2.0 is where it is today, because it suddenly made the web very usable and interactive, and people started posting their photographs and videos because contributing content was so much more easier. Applications took the shape of almost like a desktop application, the web applications, and you could use them as easily, as conveniently, and as securely. The idea of a social network was formed. Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter came along. Before this, we all know that Orkut and MySpace were the big guys, and this is what we have today. The other phenomenon that happens were blogs. The user-generated content, which is huge today. Blogs also were free. The blogging platform was free. Blogger, or blogspot.com as we know it, now owned by Google, was one of the first entrants along with WordPress, and they made it a software as a service platform which you could just get in free and blog away. And WordPress went ahead and actually gave you a downloadable platforms that you could customize, and you could even, now they've gone ahead with the WordPress multi-blog version where you can host your entire WordPress blog system on your portal if you like. And that changed everything, because now anybody could just set up a blog as if they were setting up a email account as easily as that, and get all sorts of features. There is a huge community of developers who are making a living out of WordPress, and designers even who are making a living out of contributing to WordPress and developing plugins and widgets on it. Wikis, as we know, is a huge revolution. WikiLeaks, Wikipedia, user-generated content has never thrived as much as it has recently. Tagging and RSS is common words. Everybody knows how to tag. It's just the introduction of the semantic web, I would say. but it's not quite there because the underlying platform to support it doesn't exist. It's our attempt, it's by the users and the developers, the attempt to be semantic in a way. Tagging gives meanings to document. Tagging starts giving meanings even to images and videos. We've seen tagging in Facebook. The photo tagging, especially, is what made tagging very, very famous with the consumers. RSS as a concept and RSS readers and using RSS content and syndicating it across and using it elsewhere in your own applications is very common today. People understand this on iPhone. You can easily read. There are all sorts of applications from using which you can use RSS. Right. Moving on, Web 2.0 also started harnessing collective intelligence. Dig, Reddit, and Delicious, who are formed based on this, based on the rating, the easy Ajax-based rating and digging systems that were introduced. Network effect became commonplace. Viral videos and on YouTube, images even came into effect, came into being. That's the world we live in now with Web 2.0. Shareability, mashing up things. Most applications today are a mashup of a couple of things. They don't really, they actually use a couple of other web services. Most applications today at least use one web service external to them to survive. So the era of mashups is what Web 2.0 also is. Meta profile sharing, example being the people aggregator platform, where you will be able to create a meta profile which cuts across many other profiles, and as well as create even a social network became commoditized. You could create it without, like a blog, you could create it without actually paying for it or knowing how to develop it. Syndication of content, whether for free or for paid, it became commonplace. Every publication now syndicates it. Google News indexes all of it. And we all have all sorts of ways in which we can read those contents. Open data, open standards, RSS, Atom protocols became standards, became commonplace. If you're a developer, you would have worked on some of these technologies at least very closely. You would have worked on the aggregation engines, wikis, video applications. Simplicity became the key buzzword because you suddenly were able to make everything very usable, and there was a lot of competition. Design became very, very important. Earlier, design was not important, and it became a very big selling point for websites and web services. Open APIs, the long tail. The long tail is the content that is now generated by blogs and microblogs like Twitter. Suddenly created a new media apart from the mainstream media, and is probably as important, if not more important, than the mainstream media, which is now struggling and being really affected by this. Recommendations, Amazon's recommendation of if you bought this, people who bought this also bought something else. The whole social angle of it, IAM real-time search, XHTML as a standard, SEO therefore, XML SOAP and REST protocols which to deliver data, status updates and presence, all this it's summed up to me in the phrase read write web. Read write web now suddenly indicates everything that Web 2.0 is about, where you can suddenly read as well as write, as well as contribute to the web yourself. Folksonomy is the other angle of it, which is it's about folks, it's about people, it's about social. So these two combined, this to me is safe to say is a good way to describe the Web 2.0 as it exists today. Some issues with this, which we are facing and dealing with right now. The original HTML structure describes only structure because it doesn't describe the semantics, the meaning behind information. It only describes how it has to lay out itself in terms of a web page or a browser, which is not very helpful if you want to analyze it further, if a machine has to analyze it further. So because HTML was designed for manual consumption, not machine-based consumption. Documents and data, therefore, could not interact, could not mix and mash. Mashups was between applications, but not between data. So this created some problems. Data does not make any sense. it's quite, when you look back from Web 3.0, 4.0 days to these days, we would scarce believe that there was a time when a question as simple as how old is Barack Obama's wife couldn't be answered directly by Google. Google still has to provide links, hundreds of them, and 10 of them in the front page, to point to, places where we might be lucky enough to find the answer. This requires, what does this require? It requires an ontology. It requires the relationships between Michelle Obama, who's the wife of Obama, being defined, and the understanding of what a wife means and what the word old really means, which means at this moment in time, I should be able to calculate backwards from the date of birth. So Web 2.0 does not reflect the true world, but that's where we are heading to. It's still ambiguous. All data is ambiguous. The whole of the web for the machines is a pretty boring place because it's just scattered pieces of data which the machines cannot make sense of. Only humans can make sense of. The machines are only there to place it and transfer it between different applications. They do not come into the actual picture of, making meaning out of that data. Web 3.0 is, in a way, it's all about things. It's all about actual, if Web 2.0 was about people, Web 3.0 is about actual entities and things. Things could be people, places, organizations, events, companies, products, movies, all sorts of things. And the relationship between them is also important, because unless we know, if we just know people and we don't know the relationship and it's not defined, then we cannot make much sense anyway. Web 3.0 is also about moving away from the old crude methods, which were very expensive and manual, sometimes even illegal, and definitely error-prone because of the nature of it, however sophisticated they were. Well, some of you might have worked in some of these technologies. Web scraping is one of everybody's favorite. How do you get data out of any website which doesn't provide an API? Scrape them. NLP languages help you in identifying and clustering and mining that data, natural language processing. There are open source libraries and extensive work that's been done in it. Clustering and Bayesian classifiers for sentiment analysis, understanding what category of information this is, what industry this belongs to, is a whole technology by itself. Open source technologies, libraries available. But all of these, because it's not built on a real framework, because trying to make sense of basic HTML, arbitrary HTML data, it's always going to be error-prone, you can argue. So the move away from that to the more natural, semantically annotated data is what Web 3.0 in other words could be. What the semantic annotations, though is easy, requires a framework for which to work on. And now in the next few slides we're going to see what those frameworks are, how it's going to help us, and how we can leverage it in the coming days as developers. Right. So one of the key methods, I'm going to describe only the most important ones and the most popular ones, which you will probably be hit with in the next few months. Some of you might already be working on this. One of them is RDFA. RDFA is basically a resource description framework. RDFA basically tries to break everything down into a sentence. And a sentence in the RDFA context has, as well as the English context, obviously has a subject, predicate, and an object. An example could be Sanjay is the son of Amit. Sanjay being the subject, Amit being the object, the predicate being is the son of. If Sanjay is Amit, then the predicate becomes the word is. So everything is defined and cut into triples in RDF. And the other substitute for RDF is microformats, which has an angle to RDF, which helps the manual as well as the machines. We'll get into this a little more in detail. RDF is a triple, as I said. Yeah, this is an example, hello world of RDF, you could say. I've just created a page on myopenid.com. My user ID is anticlickwise. And if you see, it links to geonames where the URI, Greater Kailash is in Delhi, where I live, is pointed to. and it says base near here as the predicate. So the subject being me, the predicate being base near, and the object being Greater Kailash. If you actually go into Greater Kailash, this is a very basic one. With this data, what you can do is you can actually figure out the population in Greater Kailash and who else lives there, all by a program. This is not for manual consumption, but for programmatic consumption. So every entity, every piece of information, every sentence, as it were, and every triple of the triples of the sentence, the object, the predicate, as well as the subject, predicate, and the object, pardon me, has a URI in place. And further down in the URI, we can define an ontology. We'll come to that, which basically details out the relationship into more areas, which can delve into more areas. For example, the URI anticlickwise.myopenid.com can contain my age, my email address, or it can point to another URI where the kind of food that I like is listed, which can then be drilled down to many other things. So you get the idea. We get into a little bit more detail over here. Suppose we were to put a simple example piece of data, the review for the movie Matrix in HTML format. This is how we would probably do it. Matrix movie reviewed in a division on a HTML page. The rating has been displayed here. You could have more formatting and more, clean and more CSS based. But this is essentially what Web 2.0 would describe it as. This is, while it makes complete sense to us when we read it, that we can see that it was reviewed by Ulysses Grant on Jan 6th and what he thinks of it and the overall rating for it. It's not much use for a machine because I can change the language and the context, the structure of this from document to document and from website to website. But if we standardize this with RDF, this is how it would look. Even though this looks a little bit more ugly, you would see that it's easy for a machine to get the reviewed by tag. The Ulysses Grant is the one who's reviewer. Jan 6th is the date. You can see the summary and the rating very clearly. And still, it's still a division. That means that the display will not be affected by it. The same with microformats, just a different format in this case. The result. What happens then is somebody like Google, which reads this data, could actually display contextual information without actually taking the user to the page. So I've used the Rotten Tomatoes search for how to train your dragon. You can see the rating already, and it can even represent it, the number of reviews directed by. So it has a link here because it is again RDF, and the people were starring in it. And the same as LinkedIn has also adopted this, where you can actually see Amit Gupta's location and what he does. So this is just the beginning of it, and Google has launched this initiative, and this whole thing is called microformat. So I'm sure you've come across various versions of this, and every website can actually adopt this, even though the adoption is not that much. Going ahead, the other thing that we need to know about is SparkQL. You will be hearing about this a lot in the next few months. SparkQL is basically a query language. It's the SQL for RDF data. We have defined RDF data in the last few slides. Now, can we search for all the movies that the director of The Matrix has directed elsewhere? All the other movies that he's directed. How do we get that data out of RDF? It's not arbitrary text, so because it's something that can be put in a database because of this, a language like SQL can be used, and or it can be a little bit more advanced. Find all the movies that the director of The Matrix is directed after 2000 with Keanu Reeves in the cast. All these are variables with contained in RDF format, so it's very easy for it's one of the easiest SQL queries. The format of an SQL query, so that you're familiar with it, looks like this. This is a query to get a person's friend whose age is greater than 18. So it's as simple as this. We'll take a little bit more advanced one. Find the universities which the founders of most successful IT companies came from, ordered by frequency. A little bit more complex, this query. It will look something like this. you a moment to digest that. All right. What else do we need? A triple shows us the relationship between entities. We need to now, even though we have defined the triples, we know the subject, the predicate, as well as the object. We don't know the meaning of them. We don't know what it means. We don't know what a wife means vis-a-vis a niece. So we need to be able to define the wife of in terms of relatively to some other piece of some other predicate. Right, so that is the whole concept. There is these are called ontologies, and there is a language to define those ontologies. You can define it in your own way, but there is a language, a standard language to define it, proposed by the W3C, is called OWL. We'll move on to what it is. It's a web ontology language. It defines the types of relationship that can be expressed in idea of using an XML vocabulary. It also indicates the hierarchies of different relationships. For example, I'll be able to say, I'll give you a couple of examples of how a ontology looks later on. It can also be defined. The typical example of an ontology is the family tree. What you see in Janai is a visual representation of it. That's the best way to think about it, the easiest way to think about how an ontology looks, though that's not the end of it. All case study. With that, we can do many things. For example, we can dynamically define. If you take food as an example, we can dynamically define this idea of a class, and under that we can say, look, we have recipes that are the key in this case, which is a class in this case. Dishes, which are classes. Cuisines, restaurants, and on and on and on. A price probably could be a property. Then we say the amount of time it takes to cook it, type, oiliness. We can define further down, into this, color even, ethnicity, and have properties for each of these, and all of these dynamically defined instead of having hard-coded databases with tables and fields like this. In fact, all this definition can exist on a separate server application. And you as a web developer do not even know what is the concept that you are inculcating in your UI. So something like this can be done. This looks a little difficult right now, but it will become clear in the next few slides. This is an example of an ontology. This is for the Q&A site, Quora. Quora has an entire ontology of the planet they're trying to build, completely crowdsourced. I've only been able to get the Java programming language ontology. As you can see, it kind of drills down and runs into many pages. It shows the relationship between Java. If you look at this, the first example of the tree is Java lies under programming languages, which lies under computer programming, whose parent is software engineering, jobs, work, and life. So it kind of drills you down. If you want to see the children of Java, here it is. So you can define this. There is no, you can from here be able to get the nieces and the cousins of any of these nodes. This reflects the world as we know it, the map of the world of our minds, as it were, and be able to create unlimited ability to navigate a website. And if you go to Quora.com, you will be able to do this. This is one of the advantages of Web 3.0. Then there are other things that are possible. H cards, which are already there, which represents people, companies, places, and organizations. It's like a V card, HTMLized. H calendar events can be defined by calendar. There is a protocol for that. Upcoming.org has already adopted it. It's a Yahoo company. So that means basically that I can import that data to any other service and be able to provide services based on it and make sense of that data. Reviews of products, services, businesses, events, we already seen this. Google already recognizes this. Yahoo does as well. Resume, LinkedIn already publishes resumes in the H-resume format. Right. True knowledge is another example. A typical question is, how old is Einstein? Einstein is already dead. So even if you're able to calculate it, you should also have the knowledge. It's a tricky question, but an engine like this is able to answer it. He was 76 years old, 1 month, and 4 days old when he died. So even though the information was sourced from Wikipedia, it is able to calculate it when at runtime. True knowledge can do many things, like tell you the distance uh, between places. It can tell you what is the age of a person at this moment. Uh, Very semantic. It's one of the most pioneers in the semantic web revolution. This is an example of what the web looks like. Nice charts from gravity.com. The initial web was their web. Somebody else, the Yahoos and the Googles were pushing out content. It was more static. There was no read-writeness of it. And then the read-write web came along in our web, where we contributed the Digs and the Twitters and the Facebooks of the world. Your web is personalized web. That will be the Web 3.0 in a nutshell. So it will be personalized for you as a person, as your taste and your understanding and the history of you. As an evolution, I'm just presenting it differently over here. Web 1.0 was a library. Web 2.0 was friends and acquaintances. It became richer in terms of interaction, became more and more social, and AJAX, which means a lot more usable. Web 3.0 will be a lot more omnipresent because data can be exchanged between all sorts of formats on your iPad, iPhone. So wherever you go, there will be a context created around it. Therefore, a lot more intelligent, content-based for individuals and not for communities, as Web 2.0 does. Recommendations based on meaning rather than someone else's. Right now what we see is social recommendations. So we do the things other people do. While this is necessary, it is also important that we go ahead and understand what the query was and be able to directly answer the questions. So direct answers, personalized ad displays. Right now ads are the same for a geography or a demographic. It will not be too long before we'll have ads directed directly at us. Unlimited ontology-based drill down, which is what a Cura does. TechGig, this particular site, also has implemented ontologies and drill down as of last week. This is a way I would like to picture Web 2.0 if it is still difficult for you to understand this. If you took the pieces of information and put them in a huge unlimited space, and each of those stars represent pieces of information, you will see that they are scattered all around and there is no connection between them. There is some amount of clustering because of brightness in some places, but there is no real way to connect them. There is no real meaning amongst them. One of the tests of connectivity is if you start at any place, you will be able to theoretically connect it to any other place in the system, like in a tree. So if you start at any of the branches, the tips of the branches, you will be able to trace without lifting your pencil off the page to any other branch in the system. So this is Web 3.0. That means everything. If you look at the trunk of it, that's life itself. And if you look at each of the main branches that come out of the trunk as technology and economics and political science and religion, it all connects back at some point in time. So there are lots of aunts and nieces and personal and impersonal and business. Everything is connected. This is how we live. And Web 3.0, this is the way I like to picture it. This is constructing this reality onto the web, onto your user interfaces, onto the database structure is the whole goal of Web 2.0, the 3.0. Some examples of companies which have already implemented Web 2.0 is Quora. Quora, as I said, is one of the first Web 2.0, 3.0 companies. Akia attempts to answer questions directly and tries to understand the semantic meaning behind the sentence. And it's not a keyword match. That way, they try to be better than Google. TechGig has recently adopted semantic technologies in the underlying architecture. We'll see more and more of that coming through in the near future. LinkedIn Skills just launched. Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn is a big proponent of linked data, and you can see that it is making a big difference. HResume is already adopted by LinkedIn. Microformats they promote it as well. True Knowledge, as you saw the example, you can all go there, trueknowledge.com, have a look at it. Wolfram Alpha, you might have heard of. you can type formulas into Wolfram Alpha, and Wolfram Alpha will be able to generate answers instantaneously. DBpedia is the entire Wikipedia that we have as a database, which then can be used basically using RDF. They converted that into a database, and you will be able to query using SparkQL, just the way I showed you in the few presentation slides back. Twitter is silently introduced annotations. Some of you might have heard of it. It's an underlying layer to their API. Not much has been made of it because the other systems that are that can make use of it are not ready yet. Music Brains database is a flourishing semantic web system. It connects every piece of music in the world that has ever been, and every entity like artists, albums, dates, times, everything else that is related to music together. DBTune is very similar, except that it goes into the more technical tune-based stuff. Twine.com now was recently acquired by Every.com. They were doing so well that they were acquired. Twine.com is one of the first ontology editors in the world. It's the first ontology editors in the world, and they are now supplying to Bing and Google. Google itself has acquired DBpedia, by the way, which they've invested in, and which means that Google is now pursuing semantic web very seriously. Right. Some of the resources to help you in this. W3.org is where the W3C consortium exists. Semantic web is the starting place, I would say, for everything. RDF, if you're interested in RDFA.info, microformats, DBpedia, Cura technology, ontology, I've given a link to here. Google, if you have a website and if you want to make it, if you want to make Google rich snippets enabled, you can go here and see how it is done, and you can submit it to Google after that. There are many libraries you can start with already. You don't have to code this from scratch, where SparkQL and OWL and RDFA is already implemented, and they give out APIs for each of those. One of the most famous is the Xena framework. It's a Java-based framework. Sesame, JRDF is again Java. Any23 is an interesting framework which converts anything into a triple. So the word is any23. That's where it comes from. Right. Conclusion is it's a new platform. It's not a feature. The Web 3.0 is not any single feature. Like Web 2.0 was not a single feature. Some might argue that it doesn't even exist. It's a thin line, and it's still a guess. It's still a need-based, educated guess as to this is the thing that will happen, and based on our history and the past of the idea is to this presentation is to keep developers like you and me ready for this, so that we can leverage it when it is a promise. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I would love to take questions from you if you have any questions. All right, some of the questions I am getting is, when will Web 3.0 be released? By, I think it's Maithili. Maithili, Web 3.0, Maithrik Desai, sorry. Web 3.0 is not, as I said, not a feature. It's not owned by anybody. It's just a platform towards which we are all going. If you really want to zero in on a place, it would be by the W3C. But commercially, the adaptation will come from people like Google and the big guys of the world. adopting Web 3.0, which Google is already doing. I want to know what role it plays in brand management, was one of the questions asked over here. Very interesting question. One of the ways it becomes a lot easier for you to be able to track your brand coverage, for example. And you will be able to, because the web now becomes more navigable, and therefore you can measure any mention of your brand, as well as measure it against competitors, etc. HTML5, yes, HTML5 is another huge advancement in terms of moving towards Web 3.0. How can I participate in Web 3.0 development metric? Well, you can get introduced. You can, if you run a web service, if you already, you can adopt one of the simplest ways to do it is to adopt rich snippets, which is introduced by Google. I've already given the link in, if you type in Google rich snippets, you will be able to, Google will lead you to a place where you will be able to adopt it onto your website. Someone wanted to view a slide about SparkQL. I'm going to take you back to that. While I do that, I will answer this another question. Do we need to define all as XML? Not necessarily, Snehashis, but as much as you standardize things, it becomes better for people to use it. All is XMLized as of now. It can also be used as a JSON format. There are many other formats which we can adopt. I'm just showing you the SparkQL slide because somebody asked for it. Is that enough? What kind of tools are available for integrating RDF-based markup in existing web-based frameworks? Well, there are open source frameworks available. As I said, Geni is one of them. It's JENI. It's a Java-based framework. Sesame, Open Sesame, I think, is one of them. And there is one more which is called NE23. All in the slide. This slide will be, the entire presentation will be posted online for your benefit, so you can access all the details, all the URLs in this. Naresh Kothari asks, I am a designer. What do I do to update myself to Web 3.0? As of now, you've been talking on development. Is there a role for designers as well? Of course, there is. If one of the things is awareness. As I said, the easiest way to participate in Web 3.0 would start from the designers, I believe, because designers mostly handle HTML as well. One of the things that you can do is convert existing web pages and have micro-formatted data inside of them. How can semantics play a role in enterprise applications? In many ways, you will be able to get market intelligence, Vipul, very easily. As I said, one of the examples I've already given over here is to be able to search a database of alma mater of any particular institute and be able to get useful information without actually manually collating that data. just from the web. The web itself becomes a database, so obviously enterprise applications, especially in intelligence gathering, go up a few notches. Web 3.0 can be capable for 3D development, is a question asked by Maitrik. Yes, but I mean that's a revolution anyway that is happening. I guess it is a part of the whole wave of Web 3.0. Even like HTML5 is a part of it. We are going towards that. Not necessarily the whole framework of Web 3.0, but definitely yes, we are moving towards 3D as well. So applications become more and more interactive, and the extra dimension that's been introduced by 3D will really help in representing data very well. What would be the impact of Web 3.0 in SEO? If you want to feature on Google, Hayden Lopez asks, if you want to feature your website on Google, look at the way Rotten Tomatoes does it. Look at the way LinkedIn does it. Rich snippets provided by them is a part of the SEO effort, if we can say so, will be able to help Google and provide instant answers to questions by users. We can also, it's also important that all data in the website is exposed in the RDF format as well for external consumption. Even though this looks very difficult, most of the platforms will come equipped with this. Like RSS is a part of WordPress now. It's not that we need to publish RSS. It's a part of the entire offering by WordPress. The same way RDF APIs and data exposure will become a part of WordPress and every other platform that is there out there. Rohit asks, in comparison to .NET framework and Java, which is going to benefit more and has a bright future in it? Please answer this. Well, as I said, this is a series of, it's a technology upgrade, it's a platform upgrade, not really related to any particular language. Java already has libraries in this. I'm sure .NET has. I'm sorry that I don't have actual names that I could tell you right now, but I'm pretty sure that there is development going on. But even otherwise, it's completely language neutral. Shardul Kulkarni has an interesting question. What are your thoughts on increasing relevance of RIA platforms like Flex, Silverlight vis-a-vis Web 3.0? How can these binary formats be leveraged by RDF? Well, if you look at it, Flash and Flex can already be indexed by Google. I'm sure the support for RDF will come out of Flex as well, if that is required, and that has to happen sooner or later. Because it's just right now it's just structured content rather than unstructured content rather than anything semantic. So the same thing that applies to HTML applies to Flex as well. Having said that, you can also use Web 3.0 as the benefits of Web 3.0 in the UI itself. You can participate that way and leverage all the advantages that Web 3.0 gets you. So I can imagine Flex and Silverlight having APIs to or functions which can get RDF data and parse it, and has an API for as a wrapper for all formats. These are the things that I can imagine happening in the next version, maybe, of Flex or Silverlight. Hello, this is a great information. Is this PPT shareable? Vaibhav Deshpande. Definitely, we'll put it up on the website, and we'll all be able to get the link on the website. Any more questions on this? You can also post it on the website, and I will be happy to answer them. Candor asks if we consider Facebook Live, etc. as Web 3.0 sites, but still I consider them as websites having a lot of JavaScript. Is that enough to be Web 3.0? Not really. I mean, uh, Facebook is moving towards Web 3.0 because the Open Graph API, Facebook is one of the pioneers in that as well. Twitter, as I said, has annotations in it. It depends upon how much you want to adopt it and how much you want to further it. So it has got nothing really to do with JavaScript as such, except to do with how you use it and how standardized you want to make it. Can the best guess given by Google is also a type of micro format? Maheshwari KR. Of course it can be. In fact, it's too simple right now, so it can be just be an RSS feed. So you ping Google with an API and it will tell you the best guess for it. If you want it in RDFA, then if there is an ontology behind it where it describes more and more properties which can be drilled down, then they can adopt that as well. How is it going to affect UI application? Rohit Saroha asks. Rohit, take a look at Quora UI. It basically changes the paradigm of how navigable a site is and the ROI you get on every piece of content. I would say there'll be a magnitude difference, a 1:10 difference between Web 2.0 and Web 3.0 because of the unlimited drill down capabilities of it. Because you start understanding content, and every click you can start learning and recommending other content based on actual user preferences, not just on social preferences, social recommendations. So your UI therefore changes accordingly. There's nothing directly in the UI that will change, except that you're thinking the usability, the whole flow of information will change off because the possibilities are now suddenly limitless. Somebody here says they missed the initial 10 minutes of the class. Please give me once more. You are free to download this. The whole presentation will be available very soon on the TechGig website, and you can all log into your accounts there and be able to download this. Do you foresee a rise in more targeted marketing in terms of behavioral segmentation with the advent of Web 3.0? Saurabh Srivastava asked this. Very interesting question, Saurabh. Absolutely spot on. As I said, one of the things that would immediately change, I feel, is the way we display ads. So therefore, the marketing itself will change because you will be able to target not based on demographic, but based on actual individuals. You will be able to reach the right kind of individual who is interested in your topics. Demographics are not good enough because you're looking at age and those kind of factors rather than interest. So ability to understand what the user, the ontology of the user, as it were, in his mind, you'll be able to more accurately predict what is something that he could click on, which means increased click-through ratios, or cost to click will obviously come down. So yes, overall it's a win-win for both marketers as well as consumers. How will consumer behavior change once Web 2.0 morphs into Web 3.0? Keshav Kumar. Keshav, well, you will start, it's the same change that you experienced when Web 2.0 came along. It's not in one way, there are many ways. Suddenly the web has become more usable. Suddenly it's become more social, suddenly it's become more interactive, and a lot more content. Twitter, you can rely on almost to get cricket scores now. The same way, you will have more and more relevant data coming to you, and you will be basically able to depend on the accuracy of the data and the reliability of and relevance of the data that has been given to you. And everything in the whole web right now is a place where you see scattered pieces of information, and so half the time you spend is in finding the right information. We call it surfing. Surfing will not be necessary in the perfect case of Web 3.0 because you will simply be presented with the kind of information that you are looking for. So are we moving searching towards the results of our queries as presented by Wolfram Alpha, Candor, Z? Yes, and further from that as well, you will be able to search as if the web was a database and come up with complex queries yourself and be able to formulate them yourself. So in short, yes, direct answers, as I call it, is something that will come up sooner or later in Google or somebody else will come up with it. All right, so this video, so how can I download this video, Ritesh asks. Ritesh, we're going to end now, and this video will be available as well as the PowerPoint presentation for download on the TechGig website. So thank you very much, guys, for giving me your time. You've all been wonderful, great questions. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Girish. It was a knowledgeful session on Web 3.0, the possibilities for developers. And for all those who missed the session, we will be hosting the video on the site so that you can refer to it anytime, and you can share it with your friends too. All the questions which might not be answered due to time constraint will be answered by Girish on TechGig. And thank you all for attending this webinar and making it a very knowledge sharing session. We would like you to be active on the site and make it a collaborative platform. Thank you all.